Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the Tinhifi T2 Mk2. This is the latest from Tinhifi, well, one of two IEMs that they've released recently, this one and the T5S, also known as the Mars. But in this particular review, I'm going to be focusing just on the T2, on the Mk2. Anyway, this is the box, something that we've already kind of seen from Tinhifi before in terms of its overall style. Doesn't want to come out. Come on, there we go. Oh, no. This is a tough one, huh? This is giving me... Oh, there we go. All right. So we've seen this box already before from Tinhifi. You open it up, the IEMs came over there. Lift this up, and underneath we've got the tips and the cable, MMCX cable, which, you either love it or you hate it. But it's not really the fact that it's an MMCX that's the problem. The quality of the cable, considering that this is a $50+ IEM, leaves a little bit to be desired. But anyway, it is what it is. No carrying case, no nothing. So this is like really, I would say, bare bones in terms of what it brings. The tips are okay for the most part. I used them, but ultimately, they also brought these blue ones, but ultimately these foam ones that Tinhifi also included, the ones that I ended up selecting. Not that there was a huge difference to the silicones, but I just felt that it just kind of helped out a little bit more in this particular case. Anyway, this is the case, simple, straight to the point, no frills. Would have needed a little bit of a better cable in my opinion, and maybe a little carrying pouch or something. After all, like I said, this is $50+, and you know, at that price you expect certain things. Anyway, that's that. IEM itself, it follows the T2 or the T series, except for the T5. It's the only one that has departed from that form factor. But the T series has always had this kind of bullet style, and in this particular one, the Mk2, they've gone for this like kind of shell appearance, kind of like the TRN, the conch. They have some let's say nuances of each other. It fits as any bullet style IEM will fit. You either get it to fit nicely, or then you basically are done for. Like I said, the blue tips that supplied by Tinhifi are the ones that actually work the best because of the very bright nature of this IEM, and this kind of helped tame that to a certain extent. And the cable that I'm using obviously is not the stock cable. This is an IVipQ cable that I selected, and it just looked good. It just went well. Nothing, no other reason, no other special reason, and it's better than the stock one, that's for sure. Anyway, that's the unboxing, and that's the shell, how it fits, and so on. What do I have here then to compare with the T2 Mk2? I've got here the original T2, which obviously makes all sense. Then the T2 Plus, the T2 Evo, the T2 DLC, and then I've got the hard mirror, the original, and the later version that they released, which is that one over there. Basically they're the same IEM in essence. Anyway, in terms of the source, I used the LITZ, the Q15, which of the expensive kind of, let's say, sources was the one that worked the best with the Mk2, and of the cheaper, more accessible ones, the Yuki worked very nicely, as did the C2, the M1P from Colorfly. Ultimately, I kind of opted for the Yuki because it gave me the best compromise considering the factors that I will now mention. Anyway, what is the signature of the T2 Mk2? The signature is basically the original T2 signature, in that you have a very lean base. I've seen some other fellow reviewers saying that the base is even leaner than the T2. Well, I've got two sets of Mk2, and apologies for that. Anyway, as I was saying, the signature of the T2 Mk2 is basically the signature of the original T2, with that lean base, as I was mentioning, but they've kind of boosted the past 10K area. So it's not only the past 10K area, but in essence that past 10k area has been boosted, so it's a brighter, more sparkly, more twinkly IM than the original. Is that, or are all those twinklies and sparklies natural? No, they are not. You can have you get a very easy sense of all of that detail is being pushed, it's being emphasized. But the let's say the positive side of that is that at low volumes, it actually is quite satisfying, as long as you're not a person that wants a lot of bass. You know, if you're a bass adverse person, at lower volumes, all that energy that it has, all that amount of twinklies and detail and everything that it's got is actually quite entertaining, and is not, in my particular case, I didn't actually even find it fatiguing. However, of course, with a lot of the songs that I like listening to, and I mean, I don't even have to go too far, but like, for example, Deeper from Pete Belasco, it's got a nice bass line. The MK2 doesn't sound sufficiently, let's say, ballsy to give that song the needed energy that it has. But overall, it's actually, it sounds okay. It didn't offend me. Let me put it that way. It didn't offend me. I can understand the idea of the T2 Mk2. I can understand maybe the crowd that it was tailored for, which will be a crowd that was a fan of the original T2 and wanted a little bit more detail still. However, in our day and age, and in the current market, I feel that this tuning is way too niche for it to have any real success. The main problem then, besides that, let's say, exclusivity of the tuning, is that once you start then giving it some volume, then things just get out of context. That leanness of the bass becomes very emphasized. So if at lower volumes and up to, I would say, about 40% of volume, depending on obviously the source, but if at lower volumes you get a feeling that the bass just barely makes it to give the songs that you want to hear maybe the necessary backing, the moment you crank up the volume, then the mids, upper mids and treble just scale completely differently to the bass, and then you start hearing a larger disparity in how things come across. And of course, under that context, then it just becomes, in my opinion, just way too. I'm not going to say aggressive because that's a strong word, but way too energetic. Way too energetic, at least for my liking. I get very tired of it very quickly. Compared then to the other T2 models, let's say, compared to the T2, I still feel that the original T2 is a better IM. Why? Because it's basically got the same bass, it's got less energy up top, but it scales better, so it kind of keeps itself very composed, be it low volume, mid volume, or high volume, sorry. It always keeps itself very balanced out, and you don't really feel that leanness of the bass being a prominent thing. Compared to the T2 Plus, which was I got mixed reviews in terms of people loving it and people hating it, and I think the main thing here was because of the fact that it came out when it came out, and the tuning was such a departure from the original T2 that maybe that was the reason why people didn't like it as much. I think it's got fantastic bass. I really enjoy the bass line that it's got, and if you use tips like I've used, the 07s, the medium-sized, it sounds very, very much like the T4. You have very much a T4 kind of vibe with maybe perhaps just a little bit more bass. So this is kind of a mini Tinhifi T4 in my opinion. Is it more entertaining than the T2 original and the T2 Mk2? Yes, definitely more entertaining. So I would think that this is an overall more complete, more makes sense IM. It doesn't have the sort of details that this has, but what it lacks in the details, it makes up for overall more coherent, more balanced, more scale capable IM. Okay, compared to the T2 Evo, the T2 Evo was a disaster. End of story. I mean, this particular T2 Evo, my one, I've actually retuned it, and retuned it actually doesn't sound too bad. Retuned it actually sounds quite entertaining, but in its stock format, it's basically got the same leanness of the bass of these two, with this very unusual pinna gain that peaks at around like 5k, but very, very energetic. So it's just got way too much upper information in the upper mids and treble that makes it, in my opinion, inferior to the MK2, inferior to the Plus, inferior to the original T2. Okay, and then finally the T2 DLC, and the T2 DLC for me is the best out of all the T2s up to now. The balance that they've struck, it's more of a harmonish kind of tune, while this one here and this one here, you can say they've got like a Tinhifi style of tuning. That one, it's got a more harmonish type of tuning. It's got great bass. I would kind of dare say that the T2 DLC is kind of like the EW200 from Simgot. It's got that sort of vibe. It's got a very well executed bass, very nicely done mids, upper mids and treble, non-aggressive, loads of space in terms of that airiness, of that, ability to portray a good big sound stage. So it sounds larger than life. That's what I'm basically saying. Super detailed. I mean, I really liked the T2 DLC. The biggest problem with the T2 DLC was, as is with the majority of the T2 series, when it comes to the fit, it's the shell. And the shell of the T2 DLC, I think, was its biggest obstacle. This bullet style shell kind of held it back from being more successful, because if it had had a more traditional shell design, I think it would have been a superior IM. So it's better than the MK2, in my opinion. Comparing the MK2 with the heart mirror there, or OG, or then the Zero, the heart mirror Zero that came out afterwards. Look, the heart mirror was a definite improvement over the original, in that it offered the same, if not even slightly more detail in terms of upper mids and treble, but more polished, not as unrefined, but with a bass presence which was more there. Although graphically it doesn't seem like there's a huge difference, but the bass is definitely more present than it is in the original. And compared to the MK2, the same situation applies. It scales better. It just is an overall more well-tuned IM. The Zero, it's basically the same thing as the OG. I found the Zero to have had just slightly more forward mids as compared to the OG. Well, at least I've got 5 or 6 OGs, and the two Zeros that I have that I compared, they all had slightly, or they all graphed slightly more forward mids. So I'm assuming that perhaps they changed either the driver or then the tuning, they adjusted it slightly. Overall, it's very similar. And overall, in that similarity, I still also think that that's a better IM than the T2 MK2. So, I mean, that's it, guys. I mean, I don't want to kind of be beating a dead horse. But, the MK2 is, I can understand its idea. I can understand its premise. I can understand what is the market that was being targeted. But it's an IM that, in my opinion, just doesn't have what it takes to really stand out. The price is the first obstacle. I mean, I didn't even bother taking out the EW200 and countless other IMs, because they are cheaper and they just sound better overall. They will satisfy a wider group of people than what the MK2 will satisfy. The MK2 will, in my opinion, only be appreciated by those that were the fans of the original, okay, and are fans of a very lean bass with a very detailed upper mids and treble. Those people, I can understand, they might be fans of the MK2. For the rest of us, or for the majority of us, I think the MK2 just doesn't have enough to make it an IM that I would say outright, yes, I recommend it. And I'm not even getting into things like, other IMs that you can get for the same sort of value. I mean, the Aoshida, the E2, fantastic IM, absolutely fantastic IM. The EPZ, the Q5, another very nice IM that you can get for the similar kind of value of this. The CCA Rhapsody, another IM that you can get for the same value of this, that in my opinion as well will be more satisfying. The Castor as well, the Harmony Edition, I think also a superior IM to this, and substantially cheaper. And that's it, guys. Anyway, I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the Tinhifi T2 Mk2 graph section. Let me take away some of these graphs here so that we can start seeing what is going on. And I'm actually going to start by showing you the graph of the original T2. Okay, this is one of 3 sets of T2s that I have. They basically all measured the same, and I think the graph speaks for itself. I mean, it's neutral with with a slight roll off in the base, if anything. This squiggly part here is something which has been occurring now ever since I did the last update on the REW software. Sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't show. I don't know what's going on there. I must have a look and try and see if I can discover what's happening. But anyway, the base is as lean as can be. I mean, there's no bleed, there's no nothing. Pin gain is almost non-existent. I mean, everything is really, look, it sits within, let's put it this way, it sits within the meat of the frequency range, sits within 6 dBs roughly. Okay, so everything is as lean as can possibly be. It's got this peak here at 5, which can be felt on occasion, not as bad as it seems, because it's only roughly 6 dBs anyway, and then a couple of related peak and then some extension. So this is the original O T2. This that I'm going to show you now is the Mark II, or well, one of 2 sets that I have, and again they measured the same. They measured within basically a dB of each other, and contrary to what some other graphs have been showing, at least my ones and in my rig and everything, and even audibly, they are basically the same in terms of the base. The difference occurs then is after 2K, where the new one is significantly more energetic and there's more extension past 10K, and you notice that. What all this basically translates to is, yes, it's a very interesting sound, it's a very detailed sound at lower volumes, but the moment you start pushing it, past 30-40% volume, things get a little bit, because if we had basically a 6 dB PENON gain, if you want to call it that way, on the OG, on this one we have a PENON of 11 dBs, and with this bass being as lean as it is, it manifests itself. Yes, it manifests itself with having an even leaner bass than what it supposedly should have. Okay, that's these 2. The other Tinhifi T2 itinerations, the one that I'm going to show you now, that's the DLC. Okay, now let me show you first the Evo, the T2 Evo. That's the T2 Evo, even worse, in the sense that you even got this crazy PENON gain. It peaks there at 5. I mean, this thing was not really a nice IEM to listen to, so much so that I actually did a small alteration to it, a small retune, let's put it that way, and I came up with this. Let me just align it. I've normalized everything at 500 Hertz, by the way, and let me just show you these 2 so you guys can see better. So the black line is the OG Evo, and the green line is the retuned one. And well, at least by having this much bass given to the Evo, it kind of evened things out. And yes, it's V-shaped, but at least it became audible and listenable, and wasn't as bad as the standard stock one. Okay, but anyway, that's not what we're worrying about here. We're worrying about is the Mark II versus the Evo, and the Mark II is better than the Evo. Okay, that's that. Now compared to the where is it now? Oh, there we go. Compared to the T2 Plus, this is what the T2 Plus is like. It's got a nice bass, okay, a little bit of a bleed into the mids, but nothing too detrimental, at least not to my ears. A bit of an early, very forward kind of sound on the mids, but then everything maintains itself pretty composed, and even this area between 5 and 7, 8K, which is a little bit more pronounced than the rest, because of the bass that you have from behind, it doesn't make itself as felt as negative as you would possibly think. And overall, I actually like the T2 Plus. I've always liked the T2 Plus. It's a complete departure, obviously, from the original T2. Let's just put here the original T2 so you guys can see the difference between them. it's completely departure. I mean, it's the polar opposite, but it was an engaging sound, and everything, I think, didn't sound too bad, because actually it's set within a relatively tight window as well. So we're talking about roughly an 8 dB window, okay, and that's why I think 8 dB for the bass, roughly 7 dBs for the mids, and I think the fact that it's set within a nice tight window is what made it be agreeable, at least to my ears. And then finally, and put here the Mark II again, and then finally the T2 DLC, which I think it's the best one out of all the T2s. It's got a nice bass curve, and no bleed into the mids, a nice pinna gain, loads of detail, loads of extension past 10K. It is a really nice sounding IEM. I mean, at least if the Mark II had a little bit of the bass reminiscence of the DLC, things could, I don't know, somehow find some reason of being. But well, it is what it is, and this is what we have, okay? And then finally, comparing with the HD Sound Heart Mirror, which was, let's say, the main contender to the OG T2. And actually, let me just again put here the OG T2 for a moment, and I'm going to show you first the HD Sound, the original heart mirror, with some KB ear tips. And this is what we had, and you would think, oh, okay, but this is going to be basically the same thing as the T2, even worse. And funny enough, it wasn't. Why? Because the bass, although it's also pretty neutral, it actually sounds much more meaty than what the graph would lead you to believe. And somehow the balance that was struck here is actually quite entertaining, and it's got loads of detail. Nothing is honestly, I've always been a very big fan of the heart mirror. Always. Everything sits within a window of roughly 8 dBs in terms of the mids and upper mids and treble. And again, I think that is one of the reasons why it sounded good to my ears. I mentioned earlier that the heart mirror Zero, which was the version that was launched later on, was a little bit different, but was a little bit more forward. But no, it was down to a deficiency in my measurement. I actually measured it again now, and as you can see, they measured basically the same using the same tip. There's a little bit of an extra peak here at 5, but I think it's just a unit related thing. I've got another set, but I just didn't want to take it out and measure it. So it's exactly the same. And the truth is, when I was listening, they were sounding exactly the same, and I wasn't really seeing that difference. Yes, initially I was noticing a little bit of a difference, but I was using completely different tips. I was using spin fits on the Zero, and I was using the 07s on the OG. And with the spin fits, I can actually even show you with the spin fits, the graph that we get is this. So we get, let me just take away this one. Yeah. So with the spin fits, we get a little bit more info up top there. But it sounded, you could pick up on the difference. Minor, but you could pick up on the difference. Anyway, compared to the T2, the energy level that we have in the mids, upper mids, and treble is very similar. But because you got just that little extra amount of bass there, it just makes it a way more agreeable listen to my ears, and a listen that will satisfy more music genres and not be so specific as the Mark II is. And also, it doesn't have the issue with the scaling that the Mark II has. Anyway, guys, I hope I was able to kind of establish a positioning here for the Tinhifi, the T2 Mark II. If there's anything else that you would like me to compare, please let me know, and I'll do my best to do it. All right. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care now.